Today, I want to speak to you about why we need God to speak. And I'm going to read to you from Exodus chapter 20, the first 3 verses. Here we go. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. Having come out of Egypt and on their way to the promised land, God commanded Israel to stay a year at a mountain named Sinai. Now, God did some important things during that time, and one of the most important things was giving Israel his law. When God gave the law, he started with the 10 commandments, and he began the 10 commandments by noting, and God spoke all these words. It was important for Israel to hear God speak these words from heaven. This God-based moral code established that this people, this nation of Israel, belonged to God and not to Moses. This was not Moses' law, though we often casually refer to it as the Mosaic Law, but rather God spoke all these words. And Moses, nor any other man, was ever to think of himself or allow others to think of him as above the law. God was above all, and his law was and is the expression of his will. We need God to instruct and guide us morally. We need to know that there is a God in heaven who expects certain moral behavior, and that there are consequences from obeying or disobeying these commands. You see, the 10 commandments and all the law of Moses that follows is a God-based moral code. It does not just say that certain behavior is unwise or unhelpful. It says that God commands us to do or not to do certain things. And it either states or implies that God sees our obedience or disobedience, that God measures our obedience or disobedience, that God in some way rewards our obedience and punishes or penalizes our disobedience. Now, without a God-based moral code, it's difficult or even impossible to answer the question, why, in response to any moral demand. You say, do not steal. I say, why not? You say, it doesn't belong to you. And I say, well, he has a lot and I don't have very much. You say, well, it belongs to him. Don't steal it. And I say, I want what he has. You say, well, you might get caught. Don't steal that. I say, I probably will not. You say, well, it's not nice to steal. And I say, it's nice to me. You say, it's not fair to steal. And I say, it's fair to me. But when we can answer, do not steal because God commands you not to, and there will be consequences from God if you do steal, then we live on a completely different moral basis. The more individuals and the more that the culture reject this God-based moral code, the worse it will be for those individuals and for the culture as a whole. Think about it today. Think of how wonderful it would be in our society and in individual lives if we all obeyed the 10 commandments.